So today, I really felt kind of a build-up and a theme over the last few weeks and the last couple of Sundays, beginning with my experience in Las Vegas with our founder, Mrs. Moon, and then Pastor Mike last week was sharing about what is something that really sets us apart as unificationists, or what really kind of defines us. And I think that there are different angles you could come at it from, but one thing that's really clear is that as unificationists, we are really making a commitment to build God's kingdom here and now on the earth. And I think that something that's really unique, because many people believe, well, God's kingdom is in heaven, or God's kingdom will come with a rapture, or when Jesus comes again, everybody will be judged, and some will be living in God's kingdom and some won't be. But there's very little idea of any kind of a partnership with God, that we as God's children are actually in part responsible for creating this kingdom, and it's a really unique thing. And then I also had a conversation with a friend, which I'll talk more about later, but I feel like all of these things kept speaking to me about something that I am very passionate about, which is, what is God's calling on my life? What is God putting on my heart? What am I called to do with my time on this earth? And to recap a little bit, I'm going to share a couple of quotes that I got when I was in Las Vegas from our true mother. The first one is, regarding the question of how we can rebuild this earth to its original state of serving our heavenly parent, you must become skilled in every field and use your sincerity, effort, and wisdom so that you can overcome all these difficulties and create a beautiful earth. So I feel like this is a little bit unique in that even for our own faith and our own church, I think the idea of not just following, but becoming a master at something, becoming an owner of something, and then offering that to the world. And then that was reinforced by this quote, which I really loved. Heaven waits until the baby grows up and is able to judge things for itself and understands the will of God and makes a determination. And I felt that this was also kind of clarifying our role in life, which is we're all babies, but God doesn't just direct us always. I was talking last time about there's the two sides of God. There's the masculine side and there's a feminine side. And sometimes the masculine side directs us, and we get like a lightning bolt message from God. This is what you need to do, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And that is also God. But I think there's also this feminine side of God that we're now exploring more, that's more like a mother, and that waits for us to mature. And what I really love about this is that God also trusts us to be able to take our knowledge and to take our study and to take our life experience, judge things for ourselves so that we can become a true owner, so that we can understand the will of God, not because somebody tells us this is the will of God, but actually we can understand the will of God on our own. And then if we understand from within, then we can make a real determination. We can become a real owner. And so that's what I took. We had a lot of time in Las Vegas. We did a lot of things, listened to a lot of things, but these 2 points really stood out to me, that we need both. We need the masculine, fatherly side of God, but we also need to explore this side of God that trusts us, that maybe steps back a little bit and allows us to, even if it takes a bit longer, to grow into our maturity and our understanding and take kind of take the lead in our own life of faith. That was reinforced by Pastor Mike's message last week. And that really reminded me, as he was speaking, I was really reminded of our vision statement. And one of the points in our vision statement is we are equipping every person for a significant ministry by helping them discover the gifts and talents that God gave them. And this is really based in the part of the principle that talks about how each and every one of us is an individual embodiment of truth. God's character is so vast, you can't find the ends of it. God's beauty is so vast. God's knowledge is so vast. We can never understand all of it, but at the same time, there are bits of that truth of God embedded into each one of us. And we each reflect a unique aspect of God that nobody else in the world can quite capture the way that we do. We have our own, sometimes we have our own, well, yes, we do have our own fallen character. We have our own parts that are not so great. But at the same time, each one of us has an original mind. Each one of us has the seed that was planted in us from God from the very beginning of creation, that is God's pureness. We all have something that is God inside of us that if we reflect on, if we truly discover, we can bring out and share to the world in a way that nobody else can. And I just think that's one of the most exciting things about our faith, to believe that I have something to offer this world that nobody else does. And the principle describes us, humanity as like a smoothly oiled machine. Well, ideally a smoothly oiled machine, where each part connects to the other parts. And each, maybe by itself, each part can't do so much, but together we create something beautiful. But if one part is broken, then the part next to it can't work properly, right? So there's value that each one of us brings to this life. And this is something that even before we had clarified what our real vision was for this community, and even as we were, I think, still discovering our own calling on our lives, Pastor Mike and I felt from the very beginning that we didn't want to be like directors. We didn't want to be telling people what to do. From the very beginning, we wanted to be facilitators. If you have something that you have in your heart that you want to bring to this community, or you want to bring to your neighbors, or you want to bring to this world, that you want to offer, then we want to help you do that. And so we were always asking, what do you want to do? And so many beautiful ministries and things have come out of that. This reminds me of a quote from Ephesians. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. So we are God's handiwork. Each one of us is a unique individual embodiment of truth. And there is something great that we are prepared for. Sometimes we don't know what that is. Sometimes it takes a while. It might take a few years, might take decades. Some of you, I know when I say this, you know exactly what that is for you. And some of you might be like, well, I hope, maybe. But that's okay. But I do believe it's there. So I was talking with a friend who's also in a leadership role in our church in America. And they were sharing with me something that was very difficult in their heart. Well, they alluded to it, and I was like, tell me more. What are you talking about? And they said that they were really struggling about the challenges and pressures of feeling torn between two things. And they were feeling torn between a pressure to like focus on certain things or to live up to expectations that other people had for them and their role that they were in. Not wanting to let people down, and I think kind of, I can say that as a pastor, I do feel like if I'm not doing certain things, there might be a little bit of judgment there. And I know this person feels it much more strongly than I do. I've kind of let go of most of that. But this person was like, well, if I'm not doing this, then am I doing a good job of my role? And I feel like people want me to do this and this and this and this and meet these expectations. But what I really feel called to do is this. And they were talking about how they wanted to create an environment for young people and really raise up our next generation and provide a path for them to become owners. And he felt that, unfortunately, it was kind of like a disconnect between what he felt like he was expected to do and what he really felt called to do. And that really, it's hard to hear. I know what that feeling is like. And unfortunately, I think many people never figure out quite how to resolve the difference. Here's the thing for me. And I'm sharing this from my own personal opinion and my own personal experience and observation. I'm not basing this thing that I'm about to say on scripture, so please take it with a grain of salt. Take it or leave it if you like. But I feel this very strongly. If we are doing things because we feel we should, or out of a guilt that if I don't do this, I am not a good person, or fear that if I don't do this, I'm not worthy, then if we're doing things out of that space, then when we come to challenges, then when we come to a breaking point, then if we fail, and we all fail sometimes, but if this is what we're basing our motivation on, and then we fail, it's really easy to feel like I've lost my value in front of all these people, or in front of God, in front of myself and my own expectations. Many young people I know have gone through this. I felt similarly myself. And I think this is where it starts, a feeling like a loss of value. I'm not a good person. But then this turns around, because actually, I think that all of us know deep down inside that this is not where our value lies. My value doesn't rest in this. But many people don't go far enough to find where their true value comes from, and instead they turn around and blame the system or the organization where those expectations came from. And that could, in our case, is often our church. Because deep inside they know their value doesn't lie in accomplishing a goal that someone else made for them, or that told them they should do. So this breakdown turns around and makes it a rejection of the system that gave them the goal. And so people leave the system or our church. I feel like this is kind of a process that a lot of young people in our movement have gone through. But it doesn't mean that actually the goals are bad. It doesn't mean that ideals are bad. In fact, I would say our goals and ideals are like the best. They're like the highest goals, the highest ideals. There's no other organization, there's no other program out there that has higher goals and ideals than our church does. But they're also not easy to reach because they're so high. They're absolute. but they can also not be effectively forced or guilted into. So we're left with, well, the goals are not bad, but we can't make people want to get the goals. So what do we do with that? I feel like this is where it's up to each person to discover their life's calling, because God's goal for us doesn't change. Those are the highest goals. They are real. God's dream for us is greater than we can imagine for ourselves. But to take true ownership over, or to be willing to go through what it takes to get there, we have to find that own desire in our own hearts. We have to let God into our hearts enough to give us the strength to overcome the challenges on the way. So one thing that I have discovered is that once somebody does find their life's calling, when somebody feels called by God to do something, and they know, I am the one that God has asked to do this, and I will not let God down, there is nothing that can stop that person. They can fail miserably and stand up and try again. It's incredibly powerful. I don't think anything could really stop a person who knows what their purpose in life is. They can fail and fail again, be abandoned by everybody else, be betrayed by people close to them, and then pick up the pieces and start over and still succeed. This won't ever happen because someone says that they should do this, right? There's never enough pressure from other people to make us go through like that kind of difficulty and want to do more of it. But if we know in our deepest heart what we're striving for, why we're striving for it, and that we'd actually be giving, like we would be betraying ourselves to not do it, then there's nothing that can really stop us. I think you can easily think of several people who are like this. Jesus, for example, right? Jesus began in the worst of circumstances, but knew God's calling, knew God's mission, and had the hope, right? I think many times we kind of see a path forward and like, yes, if that works out, that'd be great. And John the Baptist baptized him and proclaimed him, and he had followers, but then one by one they all fell away, and he was betrayed by one of his closest friends. And even still said, I won't give up on what I can do for God, even if it's a failure, even if it's not the original path, even if it's not everything I wanted to do, I will never give up on doing what I can do for God. True Father is also like this. But on many different levels, you can find people in the world who have a calling and don't give up on it. In our school, we did a discussion one morning on I didn't even say who it was to begin with. I started out with this question. Let's say that you had a product that you believed would change the world. Or you have an idea for a product. It doesn't actually exist yet, but you think you have an idea that can change the world. How far would you be willing to go to make that happen? And they're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. I'd do that. And then I said, well, what if you used all your money and all your you went into debt to build this product, but it failed? Would you try again? And some of them were like, well, if I don't have any money, I don't know if I want to try again. A couple of them were like, yeah, sure, I'd do it. It's my dream. And I said, okay, so let's say even though you went into debt and you used all your money, you were so passionate about this dream that you went to all your friends and say, hey, I've got this idea and it'll change the world. Will you give me your money? And they do. You inspire them and they give you your money and you spend it all. And then your idea still doesn't work. Would you try again? And everybody's like, nope. I think I'd go in a hole. I'd try to crawl away and like hide myself from the world in shame. But this is actually a real person. This is Elon Musk. He believed that he could make a rocket that would go up into space and then come back down and land. And all the scientific community said it's not possible. It's impossible to bring a rocket back from space and land it. And so we watched this video, and it's like a montage of like 40 different rocket launches and failures. It launches and explodes. It almost lands, and it falls over and explodes. And then it almost lands, and then a leg breaks, and it explodes. It's like so many explosions. It's very fun for kids to watch. I should have, if I'd thought of it sooner, I would have put it in the PowerPoint for you guys. You can look it up. It's on YouTube. But in the end, he succeeded, and it completely changed NASA's and the whole world's perspective of what's possible with space travel. But that's just Elon Musk, right? That's one person who caught something about his passion of what he can do for this world. And none of us are any different. If we recognize that we're an individual embodiment of truth, and there's something of God inside us that God has prepared us in advance to do. So I have, and especially, I think especially young people, okay? Our young people are built for the settlement age, for the era of building God's kingdom, the era of creation and building, not restoration and indemnity. This is not to say that young people have nothing to do with restoration or indemnity. It's still part of our lives. I have very personal experiences and struggles, but also breakthroughs of restoration and indemnity in my own life. So not that there isn't value in that. But it can't be the defining theme of our life anymore. And I'd like to encourage our more experienced members, if you feel like this has been the theme of your life, thank you for your service. But I'd like to encourage you to also join us in the era of settlement and establishment. This is a really wonderful quote from our Reverend Moon, True Father. When thinking about your future and deciding the area of expertise you will pursue, look deeply into your original mind and discuss with God. So this is really like, instead of being told, right, what I should do, or even, I think sometimes we want somebody to tell us what to do. What am I good at? Tell me, what should I do with my life? But actually, the most important thing is to go inside, not selfishly, but go to the part of us that God has created and find, what is that original mind calling me to? You know your own character best. You know the talents you have. Follow where your original mind wants to lead you. No one can steer a boat before deciding which direction to go. But when the pilot turns the wheel over to you, you will have to find the way by yourself. And I feel like we've reached this time. The pilots are turning over the wheel to us. And so let's not flounder. Let's not be tossed by the waves and the winds and circumstances and be influenced just by the challenges. Let's find what What is out there calling to me? What am I prepared for? And then when I know what I'm doing, there's nothing, no waves, no wind, no boat malfunctions that will stop me from going in that direction. So I hope that for you, this is something you can either, maybe you already know what your purpose is. Maybe you were called a long time ago and you have been on this path. And I hope for you, this is just a refresher and an energizer for your purpose. And if you don't know yet what I am called to do in my life, that's okay. It takes time. It takes... Actually, the vision point we have before this one that I shared about being called to a ministry and finding the talents that we have, before that, the vision point is about we're equipping you through prayer and through study and through small groups and through community to lead you to this point. I don't think anybody just is like discovers their purpose without a time of preparation, without a time of practice, of going through difficulties and overcoming them. We need some time. So for our GPA members, I feel like maybe you're on this time right now. Maybe you're getting that practice, right? Maybe of setting a goal and learning how to overcome the challenges on the way there. I know it's not fun. You guys are doing a great job. I was sharing with one of you guys. Somebody once asked me, what was your favorite time on GPA? What was your favorite memory? And I was like, that's a strong word. Like, favorite memory? I don't think I have any. But I do have really memories of very deep experiences, really good prayers, breakthroughs in overcoming myself. And those have prepared me for all the challenges that came after. And was a foundation and a little bit of practice into being able to, when I did receive my calling, to embracing it and going after it. So big applause to you guys for taking that leap of faith and being on that journey. But I think my main point is just to remember who we are. We are God's children. But more specifically, right? Yes, we are all God's children. But each one of us is God's unique child that has something in us that nobody else has, that has like a piece of God's heart that wants to be expressed in this world. And so what is that and how do we get there? That's up to you and your own journey. But my hope is that we don't lose sight of that, or that doesn't get buried underneath a whole bunch of stuff because we feel like, oh, if I don't do this, I'm not a good church member. If I don't do this, then I'm not a child of God. Or if I was really loving God, then I would be doing this, and then we try to do those things, but it's not really coming from inside. I don't want to lose anybody like that. I've lost too many friends like that. So let's take our true parents' advice for the settlement age and the era to build God's kingdom on earth. Follow your original mind and grow up, little babies. Understand the will of God from within, and make our own determination. Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Parent, good afternoon, morning. Thank you for today. Thank you for everybody here. Thank you so much as you travel on this journey of life with us, as we go through our ups and downs, and as we take our time to grow up from babies, and as we become aware of your heart and we become aware of your will. And not only do we become aware of it, but then we actually discover our place in it, Heavenly Parent. And thank you for protecting us and guiding us as we go through this interesting and amazing journey of life. I pray that when we're ready, that you can give us our calling, that you can not call to us from far away, but you will speak to us from within our original mind, from within our deepest heart, from within the part of us that resonates directly with you. Our calling can emerge. And I know from that point on, we will be unstoppable. Thank you so much for your protection so far, and I pray that as we go into this week and as we celebrate and have our costume contest and all kinds of fun, and as we enjoy the good parts of life, that we will also not forget you and your journey and the part that we play in it. And I offer this prayer in my name, Michael and Adonia Hendrick of Blessed Angel Family. Amen and adieu. Thank you, everybody.